Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Family Law Show. I am your host, as always, Enrique Figueroa. And joining me today, we have Nancy Perry Eaton from the law offices of Nancy Perry Eaton. And Nancy, welcome to the show today. Good having you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So tell me about yourself. Tell me about your firm. You've been practicing law since 92 or?
92, 28 years.
Wow. All right. And you started out as a solo practitioner, or you joined a private firm? How did you start out?
When I started out, I lived in Austin, and I worked for a state agency. It was the Texas Railroad Commission, and the Railroad Commission regulates oil and gas operators.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was an enforcement attorney there. And then from there, I went to the Texas Department of Transportation, was an enforcement attorney there, and then was promoted up to become an administrative law judge. And then from there, I left that, and I've been in private practice. Actually, I did go to a law firm for about a year, and then I've been on my own ever since.
So that's an interesting journey, I think. You started out with something completely unrelated to family law, estate planning, probate. How does, because that sounds like very, very involved, very intricate, highly interesting. I mean, it all does, but how does one find their way from something like that over to family law and over into probate?
Well, because I'm from West Texas, and my dad was in the oil and gas industry, and I grew up in the oil and gas industry, that's what I wanted to do, is be an oil and gas attorney. And so that's why I was told to, start out at the Railroad Commission, get some experience, and then, go work for an oil company somewhere.
So an attorney is not something you always wanted to be?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, your father, was he an attorney, your mother an attorney, or was this something that you just found like an affinity for? Like, what brought you to the law?
No, my dad was a chemical engineer and my mother was a nurse. So my dad had his own gas processing company in West Texas. And it was a very large company. And he had industrial psychologists come in and test the employees to figure out where's the best place based on their personality, where's the best place to place an employee. And so I was about 16 or 17 and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so he had this industrial psychologist sit down with me and run some tests on me and stuff. And it came, the two strongest things for me for a job or for a career was the law or the military.
Huh.
And then that just kind of started getting me interested in the law. And I had a government class in high school where we were learning just basic law, Brown versus Board of Education, that kind of thing. And I mouthed off to all my friends, if I make an A in this class, I'm going to law school. And so I got an A in the class.
You mentioned that either the law or the military.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually are married to a gentleman who was in the military, correct?
Right. He's a retired Navy captain.
So did you find that interesting when you first met each other or started dating? They were like, oh, I met this person years ago when I was 16. And they said I'd either be a lawyer or I'd be in the military. And now I'm going to be a lawyer. And I met someone who's in the military.
I never really thought of it that way. But at the time when I met him, I had my office in Fort Worth, and my husband lives here in Salado, which is the Temple, Belton, Killeen area where we have Fort Hood, which is the largest Army base in the world, and which is down the street from my office. And so when I met him, he said, how'd you like to come live on 15 acres in Salado? And so I went, okay, and shut the office down, moved out here. And so I guess I've got an affinity because I'm married to a retired military member, that I'm able to relate with all of the military that comes through my door and all the military personnel that we help and deal with.
So a lot of your clientele, your client book, do you work primarily with military clientele, or is that just a big portion of what you do?
That's a big portion, but everybody in this area is somehow related to the military, because you're either retired military, former military, You've got disabled vets, you've got active duty military. I mean, it's just everybody, pretty much the majority of people in this area have some connection with the military.
Now, there's some different nuances between civilian law and military law.
Yes, there's in family law, which is what I mostly deal with, is things like dividing military retirement and military benefits and that type of thing. There is a section in the UCMJ that makes it's a crime for you to commit adultery, which in the civil courts they don't really care anymore.
So you've been a client of Scorpion for some time now. How long now?
I was thinking about a year and 9 months.
You joined us at a very interesting time then. Like, we got hit with a global pandemic early on in your tenure then.
Yeah, it was February of 2019. Yeah.
And then like within one short year, everything was kind of flipped topsy-turvy, I guess. That
was scary, especially being so new.
But you seem to weather the storm quite well. What kind of what would you say was kind of the difference maker in terms of deciding to push forward and stick with your advertising despite whatever, everything going on in the world?
I don't know. I just decided to continue forward doing what I was doing and not make any huge changes. And then because the divorces just skyrocketed, we were in the right place at the right time. You wonder how much of that's just luck.
Well, I mean, half of life is luck, but if you're on the receiving end of that, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, right?
Nope, it's not a bad thing.
So in terms of, how divorce has skyrocketed, but other than how people are kind of interacting and going about, how you do consultations, maybe over the phone, not so much in the office. Have you seen any major differences really in terms of, the different, like the nuances or what's going on with your cases with what's going on with COVID? Or is everything kind of virtually, the same as it would be before or after in terms of the issues and things that are happening?
It's the same, except for, the limitations on the courts and what we can do as far as the courts. But everything is pretty much electronic. When we were shut down, we did everything by phone. We send them, email contracts, intakes, link to make the payment. And there were cases where I never even saw the client, or I saw them on a video, video hearing or something. But things just, they continued to move forward. We just did them a little differently.
Now, are there any, in terms of reasons for divorce or people getting a divorce or issues with custody, are there any new types of topics or gripes or situations that you're seeing more commonplace with people being stuck at home together nonstop?
I'm seeing a lot of senior divorces, a lot of people that have been married 20 plus years. And I think this pandemic has made people look at their demise, look at their value and assess their lives. And I've got a lot of people that have been, older people have been married 20, 30 years, and I don't want to die this way. I want to be happy. And they're getting divorced. And I'm seeing a lot of that. Or a lot of people that have been separated from their spouse for, 5, 10 years, and they think, you know what, I need to just go ahead and get this done.
Now, in situations like that, does it tend to be a little bit more like amicable? Things aren't as contentious, or are those still a good amount of friction in those situations where people just kind of come to this realization after years and years of kind of like, putting up with it, that they decide it's time to move on?
Yeah, they've been pretty amicable. I've only got one senior divorce that's contentious, and it's because of the lawyer that the other side hired, because that lawyer does nothing but take things to jury trial.
So is it true that there is a bit of seasonality when it comes to family law, that, around the holidays, yes, people don't really want a lot of family friction?
Holidays and summers. Summers are always slow too, but the holidays are slow because people, they need to spend their money on Christmas presents. They don't want to have to be going through a divorce in the middle of Christmas, and they wait till after the first of the year when they get their tax refund. That's a big time.
That would make sense. Your firm, so you started out, and I mean, with that journey that you went with the family law, you have an entirely female team. And I've heard a lot about the benefit of that, in particular in family law. And I'm curious as to, the thinking and the logic behind, if I, for example, am male and I decide I want to hire an all-female team to represent me in a divorce, why does that necessarily benefit me? Like, what's the benefit of, the concept of male versus female attorneys in divorce proceedings and family law?
Well, I didn't set out to hire an all-female team. I hired my paralegals and my legal assistants because they're damn good at what they do. At two of them, I worked because, I did work for a law firm when I first came to the Killeen area. And I worked there for a couple of years. And so when I left there, I stole two of their paralegals. And so I'd already worked with them, and I knew the quality of the work that they did, and I wanted them, with me on my team. And so I hired them because they're good at what they do. I didn't really look at whether or not they were male or female. And as far as, you'd be surprised the number of men that for some reason they decide they want a female attorney. And I've never really asked somebody, a male, why they would want to. Maybe because, and I don't think it's because they're hiring me because I'm a pit bull, because I always say that I only bring out my fangs and claws when I have to. But for the most, because these are family law cases. These cases have no business being in those courts. And so as much as we can get worked out, is what's best for these kids and is what's best for these families.
So your first, your driving factor, of course, is making sure that the family and the children and everything goes as smoothly as possible. Are you always looking to avoid courts, if at all possible, just to make sure that smoothly?
Yes, there's sometimes that you can't avoid it, especially now, because all of our hearings are by video, and it's awful. The courts will give you maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. You can't try a case on that in an hour. And so then you do the best you can in the hour, and then okay, well, your time's up, go reset. Well, we come back in 3 months. The judge doesn't remember anything about our case, and I don't remember anything about it either. And I'm trying to remember, where do we leave off? And this county, effective September 1st, did a mandatory mediation requirement before any case can go to final trial, which that'll knock out 90% of them easy.
Now, do you think you've had to kind of change your approach and your strategy a bit, switching from an in-court setting at times to a Zoom setting?
Absolutely. Yeah. What it's done, because I'd practiced in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for so many years, I was used to the way they do things there. And the Fort Worth family bar, I mean, we were all friends. I mean, you'd pick up the phone, hey, what do you'd work stuff out, because we all knew the judges and we all knew what the judges were going to do. And it was fruitless to try to have a hearing when you already knew what was going to happen. So we resolved probably 90% of our cases that way. And then I came to this area, and the attorneys were more combative, and they didn't believe in mediation. They didn't believe in negotiation. They did, oh, no, go to court, have a hearing. But their dockets were so bloated. When we were going to court, you'd show up for court one morning, there'd be 20 other things on the docket. And the judge would have 3 hours to, sort all that stuff out. And so the judge would call the docket, okay, who needs a hearing? Oh, well, these 5 lawyers want 1 hour hearings. Okay, well, okay, I'll listen to you and you. The rest of you go reset. And so you never got anything done. And so what I've noticed since the COVID is that's forced lawyers to pick up the phone, call the other lawyer, and say, hey, what can we do to work something out? And so we've been madly working cases behind the scenes without having to go to court. And then we've been mediating a lot more. All of a sudden now everybody's on board with mediation. Everybody's on board with negotiations. And so these cases are moving forward probably a lot faster than they did before COVID.
And generally speaking, do you think your peers have been pretty receptive to that strategy and then being a little bit more open and honest and trying to work together more hand in hand to make sure everyone makes the best of the situation that COVID presented?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's worked out. It's working out pretty well. You'll still have those one or two lawyers that just have to be combative every step of the way, and you're just like, why?
I think in general, some people just really like looking for that fight. I mean, it's you run into it anywhere. I run into it, at the grocery store as much as I would probably dealing with attorneys, day in, day out. But in general, I say, most people, I think they really want to avoid that at all costs. Everyone just kind of wants to do their job and make sure things run smoothly. So that's always pleasant to hear.
Well, and then in these cases, they all kind of take the same pattern. They blow up, they're contentious, and you think it's World War III. And then after everybody gets tired of paying lawyers, and it just kind of goes in a cycle and a circle, and then they all kind of calm down, and they're just, I'm tired. I just want this over. And then you can, okay, now we can get this done. If you're done spinning around, so now you're ready to get this done.
If you could impart some wisdom on younger attorneys watching this right now, just starting out, and they want to get to where you are eventually, where you have your own firm, it's thriving, what would be maybe 2 or 3 little pearls of wisdom in terms of business and being a lawyer that you would impart?
I think the main thing is customer service. And when I had my office in Fort Worth, I had a law partner who was a male, but I had a law partner, and we worked really well together. And unfortunately, he was 31 years old. He was killed in a car accident, unexpected. But his family owned the nice local jewelry store there in Fort Worth. And so he grew up working in his family's store. And so I learned a lot from him, as well as my father, as, he would say, the customer is always right. Customer service, we do whatever we can to make the customers happy. And that's just simple things, like returning a phone call. Or even if I'm busy, I can have somebody in the office. Would you call them back and tell them, and schedule an appointment for me to talk to them, so we know that, that they can be heard. Responding, and people have responded well to the fact that we return phone calls. We talk to them. They have a personal relationship with me. They have a personal relationship with the paralegal. They're not a number. There's law firms I've seen, they show up and they've got a stack of files and they've never even met the client, and they're just calling their name out in the courthouse, and the person walks up to him and he says, "Oh, hi, I'm your lawyer." Or they get bounced around from lawyer to lawyer. "Oh, well, no, Joe was your lawyer. It's Fred now," or something. And so we kind of look at since we're small, we're able to do the personal service. And I think just customer service. One of the things that when I moved here is that, in my opinion, I don't think a lot of the lawyers were giving good customer service to their clients. And so I told my office, I said, what we're going to do is we're going to kick everybody's butt with good old-fashioned customer service. And it's working, and people respond to it.
Now, do you feel that now in the age of COVID and people kind of, you're bombarded with such negativity, I think, nonstop now. I can only imagine that has been such a breath of fresh air for your clients to actually talk to someone who cares, wants to listen to them, has a little compassion, like even just being someone to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And plus, I've been through a couple divorces, and I've been through my divorce is nastier than my last divorce with my 19-year-old dad. He was 4 at the time. That divorce was nastier than any divorce I've ever done representing somebody. And so when people are, so I can relate to him. It's like, yeah, I've been there. In fact, I can top your divorce.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you for joining us on the Family Law Show today. And for those of you watching, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, make sure to subscribe to us or click subscribe on the link below or visit us at scorpion.co. And we'd love to have you again for future episodes. Nancy, thank you very much once again. And we hope you have a great day.
All right. Thank you.